So, Derick, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for putting up my and look, 10 minutes in, we're good, which means if we'd showed up 30 minutes earlier, like you said, we would have been fine. Thanks for doing with all this. So, Derick, can you introduce yourself? I know you're the Xdebug guy, but could you just say hi to everybody and tell them a little bit about what Xdebug is and who you are and where you're from and everything?
Hi, I'm Derick. I live in the UK. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I've been doing PHP things for a long, long time. Longer than I can count, probably over 20 years. And I wrote Xdebug, a debugging tool that we're going to have a look at today here, as well as PHP's datetime extension. And back in the olden days, I fixed or tried to reproduce lots of bugs in PHP too.
Nice.
At the moment, I work half-time on Xdebug and half my other time various contracts.
Okay. And Xdebug, you recently put out something, was it Patreon, I think, where you were saying, hey, I want to get this to be more of a full-time thing, right?
Well, that's not so recent anymore. That's been just over a year now.
Really?
But yes, that's true.
Time flies.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things out of this is not only if we can get, and you didn't mention this, and Derick didn't mention this at all, but I want to say it, that if we can get to a point where everybody's using, Xdebug, not only would it be great for all of us to have a good debugging tool, but maybe this could be a full-time thing for you as well if we're all using it and supporting it, right?
Well,
so
that's true too, yes. There's a link right there.
In the xdebug.org/support. There you go. Yeah. Nice. Thanks for following, Jasper. So let's talk really quickly about why we're on this call before we actually get into it. So recently you put out a tweet that said something like anybody not using Xdebug for profiling or whatever in their PHP is an amateur, and it started some fire. So we had a mixture of different types of responses, and I've got a friend named Phil Sturgeon who I've been friends with for a long time, and Phil on the internet comes across like a total jerk to a lot of people. And I met Phil in person, and I had a sneaking suspicion that he was really a wonderful human, and it turns out he was. And so, honestly, getting to know Phil was one of the first times I got to know someone who had an intentionally a persona that came across different than who they were, and it kind of taught me a little bit to read nuance. Now, I don't know if this is it. Maybe you actually think that we're all amateurs, or maybe you were intentionally starting Flame War, or maybe it's your sense of humor. So I didn't know. So I wanted to give you a space to just say really quickly, for the people who felt like you were gatekeeping. Were you gatekeeping? Or were you trying to start a Flame War? What were you doing?
Well, it was a bit late at night, and I don't know. How I came there, but although the wording of it wasn't particularly very articulate, the idea behind it I still think I believe in, which is that in order to be good at any sort of job, you need to know the tools, and the only way, in my opinion, that you can develop at PHP fully is if you know the debugging tools, and that includes Xdebug. Okay,
so you would have worded it more nicely, but you meant the general idea, which is that you...
Yeah, I clarified in a few following...
okay.
In a few replies.
I saw some of your replies once. So would you say that anybody who doesn't use it is not good enough, or would you say you hope that people will learn the tools?
Not good enough, but it is... So this morning, for my work job, I had to look into Zen Framework, because I don't know Zen Framework. And there was a way why I was running a test, and I had no idea why it did the Zen frameworky stuff. Well, mostly through deprecation warnings because I was running an old version with a new version of PHP, but that's beyond the point. But to not do the rest of my test. Mm-hmm. And how can you find this issue out? You can't with things like vardump, because first of all, I don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
So the only way how you can find it is single stepping, and then finally you find out after maybe 20 minutes or so that my tests never ran anywhere because Zen Framework calls exit in the middle of it, which isn't particularly useful, and I don't think it should do.
Right.
So there you go. Yeah, it's like, although I don't write a lot of PHP code myself anymore, if I didn't have a debugger for that, it would have cost me all day.
Got it. So I want to say 100% clearly, it is a useful tool that you think everybody should have the opportunity to learn, but it is not something that if somebody doesn't use, that remarks on whether or not they are an amateur. Is that true?
I think it's a tool that you should learn. This is the thing, right? I recently started writing Go code, and Go is different. It's a compiled language. And the first thing I did actually was to figure out how do I debug code that are written in it. And that doesn't mean I don't use vardump or Go's equivalent of that.
Mm-hmm.
But alone, that is never going to be enough. You're going to save so much time by actually using a step debugger, and that is either in Go, but Delve or GDB for C programs or anything like that.
Right. So step debuggers save time.
Sorry, one more time?
Step debuggers save time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going to walk from is and one of the things I mentioned people said is you responded to Derick and saying, hey, let's work on this together. I said, well, first of all, like anytime there's big attention paid to something, it's an opportunity for us to all learn and grow. And second of all, like let's figure out what the good truth is out of the drama. And the good truth is step debuggers are useful tools. And if somebody chooses not to use one, in my opinion, they should choose not to use it because they choose not to use it in that particular moment, not because it's something they don't feel like they have access to, right? So if we can come on the stream and make this particular step debugger, which is the only one in PHP that I know of, something that everybody has access to, well, great. Then that allows us to make our own decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, wonderful. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using a vardump or DD here or there, but it shouldn't be, in my opinion, not be your only tool that you're using.
Yeah,
it calls for that sometimes, and other times it's not going to get you where you want to be.
Yep, and Spabby just mentioned right there, he said, as a consultant, I don't know how I could actually learn a new code base without a step debugger, but I also use vardump daily. So what we're talking more about today is adding a tool to people's repertoire for when they want to use it.
Absolutely.
All right, so learning, somebody pointed out that I had not updated my titles, which is also one of the steps I normally do at the beginning. Learning Xdebug live with Derick. How do you pronounce your last name, by the way?
I say Rethans.
Rethans? All right. Not Rethans?
Reasonable. No.
Rethans. Yeah, I'm never going to get it perfect, but all right, cool.
That's okay.
Great. So what we're going to do is, so first of all, in the past, there was a standalone Xdebug client, and I actually was able to get it to work. And a lot of times my problem has not been getting Xdebug itself installed, but getting it configured together with my IDE. I presume that that's true for most other people, where getting Xdebug installed is usually not the problem. It's integrating with IDEs that's a problem, which is why if you just have PHP Store or something like that, you're probably just good to go, right? Most of the time.
Even that, it's not always as trivial because, I mean, the biggest thing that people don't realize is that it is not your IDE making a connection to Xdebug.
Mm-hmm.
It is Xdebug that needs to make a connection to your IDE.
Oh, got it.
So if in your networking setup you have exposed everything for your IDE to talk to Xdebug, that doesn't do nothing because it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest misunderstanding sometimes of setting up your networking for this.
Yeah, and Modesta V, thank you for mentioning that. One of the things I would love for you all to chip in with is he's going to get me set up on my machine, which may prove to be extremely difficult relatively or extremely easy relatively. We don't know which. Yep. But all of the rest of y'all, this is a perfect opportunity for you. Now, we might not be able to answer all of them live, but like I would love to get to the point where the result of this conversation is we get to the point where everybody who has had trouble with Xdebug in the past can either get the answer now, or we can recognize that there are resources that need to be created in order for that to be easy. I would love to be a part of us making that as easy as possible. So, all right, so we're going to do VS Code today. So for anybody who doesn't know, let me just kind of walk through the setup that I have right now. I've got Laravel Valet, which I think it's going to be docs/Valet. So what Valet does, and a lot of folks who follow me are Laravel users, so they're familiar with Valet, but anyone who doesn't, Valet is an all-in-one bundled tool using Homebrew that basically installs Nginx and DNSMask bundled in the app, and then it installs other dependencies, including PHP, using Homebrew. So I actually just last night had to switch my PHP version, so we have a brand new, fresh version of PHP 7.4 installed by Homebrew. And that's what's serving everything. So when I visit something like, I should have, let's spin up a new app real quick in the background. Lambo, Derick is my friend. Lambo new. We just changed the syntax on that. It is my friend. Derick, Lambo is just a little decoration thing. Oh, so I'm in the middle of working on a beta of Lambo, so we'll just use the Laravel installer instead. I've done it in the last few streams. We've been working on Lambo. So, all right. So that will end up at DerickIsMyFriend.test, and we will be doing all our testing in there. And then I'll be using VS Code for this one. I switch between VS Code, Vim, PHP Storm, and Sublime Text, but I understand that it's very difficult in Sublime Text. And relatively easy, obviously still work on PHP Storm. So I figured since VS Code is my daily driver and that's that for a lot of people, why don't we start there? So John Sugar says setup for command line debugging versus web app is different. Also debug and PHP unit tests is good to cover. Okay. So we'll start with the most.
PHP units is just command line, so that should be no difference.
Okay, yeah, I think the main thing we're going to do is just kind of try to get a web view working, and then we'll try and get a test working. So we've got DerickIsMyFriend.test working now, so we can load it. We see this. So let's assume that it's something in the framework that is not working the way we're expecting, just so we can get something that kind of digs kind of far down the call stack. So I don't actually. Go ahead.
What's now running your website? Which web server is that? Is that something that has just been started, or that you already had running before?
It's already running. So this is Nginx. So Nginx and DNSMask run full time, and DNSMask routes anything at .test over to Nginx, which then serves Valet's default configuration. And what I taught Valet is that anything under sites should be what's called parked in Valet, which means that it basically creates a config file for the directory .test.
Okay. And that runs PHP, obviously. But does that PHP have Xdebug? You mentioned that Valet installs PHP with Homebrew. You can't install Xdebug with Homebrew anymore because they messed that up.
Okay, so then that might be a part of the process. Would it be in PHP-i if it was in there, or what's the easiest way to see if it's installed?
PHP-v is the easiest.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because it says with Xdebug somewhere normally, right?
So no.
Okay. All right, so first step is how do we get Xdebug installed with Homebrew?
Yeah. Can you type which PECL, P-E-C-L?
Yep. So I'm glad we're talking about PECL, because I recently had to relearn all about PECL, having not touched it for 10 years probably. And I didn't use a Mac last time I used PECL. And so it was a little bit of a dance. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go through the how to get started in PECL like normal here, because I've already done it. But there is an initial step that you have to do on a Mac for everybody. Just so you know, the first time you use PECL, there's one step you have to do. Derek, if you do it frequently, you can share. I can't remember exactly what it was.
I don't use a Mac, so I don't know what it is on the Mac. On my Linux system, you need to have compiler tools installed, but of course I have those anyway.
Okay, so there's one really quickly thing. Oh, look, Jason McCreary, friend of the show, has a thing. Well, this is Pear, though.
Pear is the same. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
it's the same idea.
He's installing it differently than what we did then, though.
But you have PECL installed, so you don't need to install it.
Yeah, I didn't have to install it, but the first time I used it, I had to do something to add it to my PHP config file. And it was something like you basically find what your PECL config directory is, and then you add it to your config somewhere. Oh, look, Jason's here. Hey, Jason. Go ahead.
So somebody's asking, can you not install it using Homebrew? No, because recently, like last year, they removed all the PHP PECL packages from Homebrew. So now you need to use PECL again. This should not be hard.
Yeah, there's just one step.
But
go ahead.
You would need the Xcode stuff installed first.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is what you see.
Yeah, it's the Xcode siphon select. Okay, so let's assume that this is fine, and I'll probably wipe a laptop sometime soon and make sure that I can get a full walkthrough of how to get it all installed. But I have PECL working, so let's keep going through your steps.
If you type which PHP is the same path, just making sure it's the same path, because sometimes the PHP and PECL tools are from different PHP versions, and then it doesn't work.
Got it.
So that's something you need to be aware of. Okay, now we have PECL, and it looks like it's the right one. If it's not, we'll find it out soon enough. If you type PECL install Xdebug.
Just like that?
Yep,
okay.
Enter.
I'm going to zoom up for everybody.
Let's open. It shouldn't take that long.
All right.
Needs to download it first. This is something I run 700 times a day. and I would configure that it does caching in the background, and it uses all my 24 cores. So
nice.
So lots. It takes literally a second or two to do.
Yeah, sorry. Jason mentioned that. So in terms of the recent change to Homebrew, so sorry to interrupt just for one sec, Derick, but Homebrew used to come with a lot of things bundled, but not only was a lot of things bundled, but you could also install basically extensions through Homebrew. So that's why you probably in the past, if you used to use Laravel, you installed something like PHP 7.2-mcrypt or whatever. None of those things are there anymore. You now get PHP and that's it. And then if you want to do any extensions, including some of those ones we used to install with Homebrew, or new ones if Xdebug is new for you, you now have to use Peckle for all of them. So if you have not yet and you're a Mac user, you're going to need to get familiar with Peckle. All right, back to you, Derick.
Anyway, it seems to have compiled. It says extension Xdebug enabled in PHP.ini. For me, that never does it. Okay. So try PHP-V.
Hey, there we go.
Excellent.
So if that had not worked, would it be the normal process where you go to PHP.ini and you add the?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, if you're going to add an extension to if you add extension to your machine, you also have to add it to your PHP.ini, and this is going to be helpful for you because if you add this extension and then switch PHP versions, you will likely have a different PHP.ini, and so usually at the top of your PHP.ini file, you have to add something that basically looks like extension equals.
That's all ignored.
Okay.
All the section headers, it does nothing. I would always recommend to have an empty PHP.ini, just wipe it clean, and only make the changes that you actually have to do.
Okay, can you say that? Say that again.
I always start out with an empty PHP.ini and only make the settings that I need to make.
So you delete all the ones that are in PHP.ini by default?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't even copy the file.
Yeah, as one of the maintainers of Valet, I'm not sure if I would recommend that because I think we ship certain defaults out of the box in PHP.ini that I want you to have in there, but I'm not sure, so I'll take a look at that later. But in the end, you do want something that says something like extension equals xdebug.so or something like that, basically, right?
It is. There's no braces, and it is Zend_extension is xdebug.so.
Okay, cool. So yeah, and that is, do we get directions here? I guess we don't. So if somebody needs to do that, go ahead.
So the thing is, in your output, it said that it configured it for you. Mm-hmm. In my case, it can't do that, so it tells you to do it.
Oh, okay. So if it doesn't work for you, it tells you what to do. Mm-hmm. It's not like it tells you it did and then it fails. Okay, great.
And if you scroll up a little bit, so there's a message. You're scrolling past my message.
Yep, that's right here.
That needs some updating, actually. I see that now. I never look at this.
It's got extension instead of Zen extension, yeah.
Yeah, but it says disregard this message because Peckle used to always tell you to use extension. And for Xdebug, that does not work.
Got it. Okay.
But the documentation links are outdated, so I'm going to fix that.
Okay. So this is great because Spabby is actually live debugging folks who are asking questions in the stream. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
All right, but it sounds like it is installed now, but that doesn't mean that the debugger is enabled. Mm-hmm. So that is one step that you currently have to make, is that Xdebug by default doesn't enable most of its features, because if it did that, everything would be way too slow.
Yeah.
And it also makes no sense to have the profile and the debugger going on at the same time. So that's something we need to enable.
Okay.
First of all, you need to find out where your PHP.ini file is, and you can do that by typing PHP -ini.
Really? I've always done PHP-i and then grept for it.
Yep. This is better because it also tells you the additional PHP.ini files that are being parsed.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I do think that if you add any files into conf.d, they just all get loaded, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is what I recommend: is if you do want to have a blank file in Valet, at least just go add extra blank files in here for your own work. So.
Yep, and it doesn't matter what they're named.
Okay. So do you want to open that up, or do you just wanted to see it?
Yeah, no, we need to open it up. Right. But we need to open up the standard.php.ini, because that's where Peckle installs these things, which I don't think it should do, but that's what it does.
Yep, so there's our Zen extension equals xdebug.so. Yeah.
It just puts it at the top, because who cares where it is? PHP doesn't either. So we need to make one extra setting here, which is xdebug .remote_enable.
Just equals like one. That's okay.
No, one.
Nice and Boolean.
I'm not sure whether true works. I know that one works.
Sure. All right. Just like that?
Just like that.
All right.
Yep.
What's next?
Okay, if you should be enabled now.
Okay. Is there any test we can run other than just starting to try to get it working in VS Code to make sure that we actually have it connected right?
So I wasn't quite on talking before you closed Vim. So if you can open it back up. A very, very useful thing to also make a setting is to create a log file, because it will tell you exactly what Xdebug is going to attempt to do, and whether it can make a connection or not. So that is xdebug.remote_log, LOG, equals, and then a path. I usually put in /tmp. I'm not sure what it is on Mac. I don't. You need to specify the file name too, so not just the directory.
I don't actually know. Oh, there we go. Cool.
Yep. And then, I do xdebug.log, but whatever.
Perfect.
Doesn't care. Now, if you're on a recent Linux that runs systemd, it will put it in some other different private temp directory.
Oh, within here. Okay.
We'll keep that for some other time. Okay. It will not make any. It wouldn't put anything in there until you actually start making requests.
Got it. Okay, cool. So we should go make a request, or is there more first?
Well, you need to restart Nginx or PHP first.
All right. Sorry, this is killing me. All right. So brew services. You said or, just either one?
Well, PHP is the one that needs to be restarted.
Okay. I don't think you have to do PHP FPM. Yeah, okay. So brew services, restart PHP. So let's look at the chat. Looks like everything's being handled there. Is a true Xdebug? Yeah. So composers. Saying people are amateurs if they don't use Xdebug. Well, so Urban J, that was you're saying that somebody's being an asshole, and you're kind of being an asshole by doing it. So while I understand that you may think that wasn't the appropriate way to say it, and it sounds like Derick may have agreed that wasn't the right way to say it when he mentioned that it was a little bit late at night. Derick, is that safe to say that you think that was maybe not the best way to get about your message? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want you to say what you're saying, but I want you to have space to say it here. So.
It wasn't the best phrasing.
Thank you. So if someone has acknowledged it's not the best phrasing, then let's not be assholes to someone who we feel like was being an asshole. So, yeah. Okay, cool. So we restarted PHP. So in theory, our request should be working. What's next?
Yes. I'm not sure how you do this with Laravel, but it is often good to see with PHP info output to see whether it's actually loaded for the web browser as well.
Okay.
Or sorry, in the web server as well. They just stick it at the top. Yeah. It's ugly as hell, but it does the job.
Yeah. So just for anyone who knows, the first thing gets loaded on every Laravel request is public/index.php. So if you ever have to do this, you just throw it at the top of that file.
Yeah. It's the same for Send Framework, as I found out earlier today.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, that's interesting font switch that it just did. All right. So should I be searching for anything for you, or?
Search for Xdebug?
Yeah, I didn't see anything. Oh, you know what? Last night when I switched, I got 7.4 on the web and 7.3 on the command line. Awesome! I thought I'd fix that. Okay. What's the fastest way to fix this that doesn't involve tooling around with Homebrew all morning? Oh, goodness.
Yeah. That is a tricky bit, right? And see, this is where these things get tricky.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure what the answer is.
So, in theory, Valet has a tool for Valet use that I helped write, which is why I know that it's imperfect, unfortunately, where it basically stops PHP and then kind of relinks all the things. And it was using PHP, this Valet use thing, that went wonky yesterday because my old version of that was being problematic. I'd rather Sarfus. I'd much rather we do this with homebrew versions. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Sarfus said it is probably easier, but
yeah, the problem is I don't want what's easier for Xdebug. I want what everybody's doing. You know what I mean? Because the whole goal here is saying, what are we all doing? The problem is, yesterday I was working on a project and I pushed it to staging it through a whole bunch of errors, and I realized it's because the project had the server upgraded to PHP 7.4, which I did not know. Okay, so we're on 7.4 locally, so we'll probably have to reload some of that.
But you need to be careful, because this PHP 7.4 might be a different install than the one on the command line still.
Yeah. So at least they're both 7.4.7. So let's see. Go ahead.
If you make it, go to PHP info output
in
a browser. You need to leave it a moment, because the video isn't good enough for me to see it instantly.
Oh, got it. Let me zoom in a little bit too.
It's really tricky to say. So it says prefix is user local seller PHP 747. So that is the location where Homebrew installed PHP. And that is also the PECL that we need to use from there as well.
Yep.
So we're going to have to check in there what the exact path is of PECL, change your path, and then run PHP, because I don't believe that is the right one.
Okay, so let's go to user local bin and see.
I think it was in seller. User local seller. Okay,
yeah,
so
but
it has done that correctly. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to show, and PECL, I assume, will do the same, but it's to. Oh yeah, so it's the same one, 747 for both.
Okay, so that's good to know. If you type PHP-v, does it still work?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
With no Xdebug as expected.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we do it.
All right, so then we grab that.
No, you need to
You actually have to fully reinstall it? Yeah. Oh, got it. Okay. So that was PECL install.
Versions. Yeah, 7.3 and 7.4 can't use the same binary.
Got it. Okay. All right. While this runs, people in the chat, we're running our PHP containers with Docker. Will this also be tackled besides the locally running? It will not be tackled in the next 30 minutes, but I'm sure it'd be great for somebody to do a conversation about that at another time. One of the things is... Oh, go ahead. One of the things is that we've had several blog posts in the Titan blog about Xdebug, because one of the folks at Titan, Jose Soto, spent a lot of time trying to get everybody working. So he actually wrote up instructions a couple of years ago about Xdebug with Homestead and VSCode, and then also with I don't know what this one was on. So there's a couple things here, and I will make sure that anybody who uses Laravel has as many resources as possible for Xdebug. And Derick obviously already has some resources out there. But if there's something I was gonna say, if there's something that you all need, let us know in the stream, and then we'll be able to tell you whether or not that exists. Because if Derick hears the things that people need that are keeping them from using it, that will help him kind of know where to build documentation and stuff. So,
in the end, where I want to end up is that these posts aren't all over the internet.
Yep, they're collected.
There's a section on the documentation where you pick your combination, and it will be content either through a link or just all the same format, so that it's easy to pick up and see the difference between them.
Yeah, it sounds great. All right, so in theory, it's enable already. Go to okay, cool. So we now have the same version on the command line. So we need to go re-enable everything though.
You need to do that again too.
Yeah. So what did you have me do? It was xdebug dot something.
Remote _ enable equals on.
And then xdebug.
And then the log.
Remote log equals /temp / what did I name it? xdebug.log. Look good?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, that should be it. Restart PHP.
All right. Brew services, restart PHP. If you're on PHP Storm, you can add new debugs to the GUI. Yep. Spabby, I'd be happy to stream where you bring your environment. Yep. Oh, great. That's awesome. Go ahead.
Ravi, the IDE key is not necessary, or shouldn't be necessary. The IDE key is something that browsers tend to log down to, but on the Xdebug side, that shouldn't be necessary. It's only necessary if you have a very complicated setup. Having said that, NetBeans requires it to be a specific value, but that is something you don't have to do in PHP.ini, but you can set with the browser extensions already, so you don't have to worry about it right now.
All right.
And yes, this is more complicated than it should be, and that is all changing in Xdebug 3. So this is a bit of a a point where I don't want to spend lots of resources writing all the docs for Xdebug 2, because it's going to change in 3 anyway.
Got it. What's the timeline in 3?
I hope to get at least a beta out by the time PHP 8 comes out.
Okay. And when is that? I don't actually know when that's coming out.
PHP 8 is November 26th.
Okay. So hopefully a beta by end of November. And cool. All right. So where do we go from here? Do we now want to go do a request so we can see if we have logs?
We check PHP info output again.
All right. PHP info. All right. And then check for Xdebug. There we go.
There we go. And if you scroll down further, there should check also whether remote enables turn on, because I sometimes make typos.
It is on.
Yep. Oh, good. Okay. You don't have Docker or anything installed?
It is installed, but I'm not using it for this.
Right, sorry. PHP is currently not running in a Docker container.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, fine. Then that should be it on this side.
Okay. Should we check the log next, or?
Well, nothing should show up in the log because we haven't attempted to make any debugging connections.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good first step.
Okay.
You're using Chrome here.
Yep.
And so this is my workflow, and I'm not sure whether everybody likes doing it like that, but there are so many different possibilities that I'd just like to stick to one.
Okay.
And I never enable debugging by pressing Go in my IDE. I always have PHP Storm just listening for incoming debugging connections and initiate the debugging connection with a little browser extension.
Okay.
Which I don't think you have installed.
I don't.
Now,
go ahead.
Manage extensions. Now, I follow it by a link of the. That's what I can remember. So maybe you should try that instead.
It cut out for just a second. Can you say it again? I didn't hear you.
Okay. If you go to xdebug.org/docs/remote. Yep.
Is it this right?
And if you scroll a little bit further down, there should be 3 different extensions. I have rewritten it. There we go. So there's a link for Chrome.
Okay.
Click on that.
Oh, I do have it.
Installed.
Oh, this item has been disabled in Chrome, though. So I had it, but I had turned it off. All right.
Perfect.
So
you can close the screen again.
Okay.
So is it there? I can't see that it's too small.
I can't see it either.
It should be here. It doesn't help if I point my mouse pointer in the position where I'd like it to see.
Yeah, because go ahead.
It shouldn't show up on this screen.
It shows up over here. Yeah. Well,
it should show up over there. Yeah.
Let's pull off the PHP unit real quick. The PHP info and see if for any reason that might help us. All right. So we still don't see it here.
Okay. Go to Manage Extensions and see what it says there. Then I've never had a problem with that. Is it?
All right. So
is it enabled?
It is enabled.
It's enabled on
all sites.
All sites. No, it's inactive. Did you change that?
Where's it inactive? Sorry.
It just, I saw a change where it says inspect views from back page to inactive. Don't know why I did that. I have no idea what this is.
It says click the alert by your avatar. New extension added, application launcher. Yeah, that's just a note about that thing being added. Okay. All right, so it is on. It's using version 1.6.1. I think this right here is just to allow you. It's just you can see something about.
I see.
Actually, I don't even know what that is. Yeah, never mind.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know what that is.
All right, so if that's not clear, we can. Well, I can't restart Chrome because you're in Chrome. I could fully uninstall it and then reinstall it rather than just deactivating and inactivating it.
I'd say give that a go.
Okay. Thanks for following, Tidsy. All right, so I actually just want to try here and just see if I were to ask for a new extension. How do you search for? You know what? Never mind. We're just going to go the way that worked because it worked. Xdebug.org/docs/remote, and then search for the word Chrome.
So Robin makes a reasonable suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. Use the extension by clicking on this icon, which is now there.
Okay, so it's in a different spot than where I expected it to be.
Well, the interesting thing is it went away after it said that. So it did still... It's a different spot, but it still wasn't there. So we'll try Robin's idea. Oops. Command T. No, it does not seeing it. Command Shift X. When I hit Command Shift X, it shows up. But when I don't, it goes away.
I think there's just too many icons or something. Anyway, just...
Click the puzzle icon and it will be... You have to click the pin there. Oh, I have to pin it for it to always show up. That's new.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, that's cool. Well, can I get rid of some of these then? Jeesh. Okay, good enough for now.
All the things you don't need?
Well, all the things I never click. You know, I'm glad that it's working, but it's not like I ever actually click it. So, okay, cool. Thank you so much, Donnie Sim. All right, cool. So we are now... live-ish. So now what?
Click on debug.
All right.
Request page here.
All right.
Click on something. I don't know.
These will all take us off the site. I don't know if that matters.
Well, yeah, it does matter. It needs to be something that runs on the site.
All right.
We can't debug Laravel.com.
Yeah, routes.
Hopefully we can't debug Laravel.com. Okay, that should be fine. But because we've now tried it, there should be something in xdebug.log file.
All right. Oops.
There we go. So that works fine.
Fantastic.
Of course, it doesn't work because it can't connect to your client. But
yeah. All right, so we'll just tail that. So if we need something, we can get back to it. Okay.
So this log will list all the connection attempt, but also the full communication of the protocol. So once you have established it works, I recommend you turn it off.
Got it. Good note. Yeah, otherwise it's going to get pretty heavy, pretty fast.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, what's next?
We need to get VSCode going.
All right. All right.
This doesn't particular. Yes. Now, and this is the bit where I am more unsure on.
Okay.
Because I don't use it. So there is a plugin for Visual Studio that I've opened here, that looking at here on my screen. So I'm looking down here.
Yeah, no worries.
Which is called PHP.debug. Now, it says installation launch VS Code quick open, Control P. There might be Command P. And then type ext install.
X install like that?
No, ext, ext.
Oh, ext, extension install.
Yes. Ext space install, sorry.
Oh, ext install.
Ext space install.
Yep.
Yes. Space. And then it is Felix Becker.
Felix.
Sorry, it's a German name. I'll have to spell that.
Like that?
Yep. .php-debug.
All right. So it says no matching commands. But I assume that's the name of somebody's extension, right? Can I just...
Correct, yes.
So I've got the extension marketplace right here. Let's see if I can see it here. PHP-debug by Felix Becker. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the one.
All right.
So you have it installed. So
I have it installed already. Great.
Now, how do we use it? That's something you're going to have to find out together because I don't use it, so I don't know.
Okay, got it.
So going by the documentation, it says install Xdebug, which we've done that. We've configured PHP to use Xdebug, done that too. So it recommends to make another setting in PHP.ini, but we're not going to do that.
Okay.
Because your browser extension is the equivalent of doing this. And by not setting remote auto start, you can select by each page, by enabling it in your browser, whether you want to make a debugging connection or not.
Okay.
So that's an option you have.
If we were debugging command line stuff or unit tests, would we need to turn this on then?
Technically not, but it is easier.
Okay. So the simplest answer for people who are just getting started is if you're using your browser only for Xdebug, you should use the browser extension. But if you need it to work... I would
recommend that, yeah.
But if you need it to work in PHP unit or for command line apps, the simplest solution is to turn on remote auto start like this.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And also that heading, that Xdebug heading means nothing, but that's fine.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
Okay, so we've done that. We have verified with the PHP info, and we also already know that Xdebug is making connections, trying to make connections.
Mm-hmm.
So now the only step that we need to do is the VS Code configuration.
All right, so...
And for that...
Go ahead.
In your project, go to the debug and hit the little gear icon and choose PHP. Where's the little gear icon?
Maybe this one?
Okay.
Well, it's not the debug, though. So I'm actually pretty new to VS Code, so there's folks on the stream who actually are much more used to this, so I'm going to have to...
yeah, that's okay.
Rely on them. So I think there's probably like a debug up here, but I don't see there's no... on the right debug play button with the little bug, he says. Oh, this one right here. Okay. And then open a file. But it's telling me...
Hang on. There are two different options here. You can either initiate a debugging through VS Code or by requesting something in your browser. You want remote auto start if you do it through VS Code, but you use a browser extension if you do it through the browser. So the listen for Xdebug option, that is the one you need to do.
Okay.
In the way how we are setting it up right now.
So this says, in your project, go to the debugger and hit the little gear icon and choose PHP. A new launch configuration will created with you for the two configurations. So far, this is the only gear icon I've seen. Colin Hall says it's in the plugin list where install was, which would be, I thought install was right up here, but I don't see anything about what you're talking about there, Colin. Could you tell me? Oh, this gear icon right here, the config on the thing itself?
Oh, I see.
I don't think so, because that doesn't say PHP anywhere in here. It's saying right now, go to the debugger and hit the little gear icon. So let's find... Maybe there's like actually a debugger portion of VS Code that we need to find. Open configurations, maybe, since we're supposed to be configuring PHP. There you go. Now, interestingly, it does say Chrome, but we're going to try PHP. Great. So and these are our two options.
Right. So just to answer Uziel in the chat, it isn't necessary to install the Xdebug browser extension, but I find it work better.
Okay.
All right, so this looks okay.
All right.
Listen for Xdebug. I mean, they misspelled it, but that's okay with me.
Is there no capital on the D?
No.
Got it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right, so that's what they wanted us. So when they said that, that's what they wanted us to do. So anybody who needs to do that, if you want to configure it, you can go open configurations and then PHP. But that's exactly what we wanted. This setting will simply start listing the specified port. If you configure the Xdebug like recommended above, every time you make a request with a browser or your web server. So this is what we're talking about, is the listen for Xdebug. So now, how do we enable that version?
That should already be done, from what I understand. But there are a few options that you sometimes might have to make. But because everything for you runs on the same machine,
shouldn't have to happen.
You shouldn't need to do anything. Yeah.
So in theory, it's happening right now. Go ahead.
So Ravi is asking, do we need remote port? You only need remote port if PHP FPM and Xdebug both use port 9000. Unfortunately, that is the default for both. So we might have to change that. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know how to use this on the Mac. Can you figure out which port PHP FPM uses?
I know you can. I don't know that I know how. Does anybody know how to do that?
On Linux, it's netstat, but I'm not sure what it works on the Mac. Try it in a terminal.
Yeah, it sounds familiar, so let's just try it. Come on. Okay. Uses 9000 by default with Valet.
Okay, you get a very long list.
Yeah. So are we going to grep something out of here?
Just use less. It should be in the top section.
Okay.
Okay. Spabby says you need to change it.
Okay, cool.
No.
So we're going to config both our INI and then set
Correct.
it. Okay, so xdebug.remote port equals 9001. Let's do something weird. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm changing it to 9003 for Xdebug 3.
Okay. And then so we'll make that same configuration setting when we say open configurations, and then we say 9003. Oops.
Yep.
What? Okay, have my fingers in the wrong spot. And we'll do it here too. Is that cool?
Yes. Okay, so what other options can you say here? I think we should just try and see what happens.
Okay, so we need to run a...
We need to listen for debugging connections.
I think what that's going to be is run it using that particular configuration. Yep. Okay. So we're using the listen for debug configuration right now.
Okay.
Which
make the request in your browser and see what happens.
All right. All right. So I assume that we're going to see something down here.
Well, it should already have done that.
Yeah. So we didn't see anything just on the basic request.
Did you restart PHP?
That's a great question. Not after changing the port. No. Brew services. Restart PHP. Nate says you didn't click run, but I'm pretty sure I did. That's how we got to this right here, this purple thing, pinky purple.
Okay. Try it again and then no.
Nothing. Do I have to click it twice? I don't think I have to click it twice. I'm pretty sure it's running. That's why it's pink right now. We see the debug console here. Go ahead. Sorry.
Maybe he means the play icon on your right hand side. It's the fourth icon from the top. Oh no.
There's a tiny toolbar in the middle of VSCode at the top. You have to reload that thing.
I don't see it.
This thing right here.
Okay. Check the log output to see whether the port's changed. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, you saw something in here?
Yeah, there's this icon. It says run.
Yeah, but I think that just started this, right?
Okay.
So Robin said reload this, but we did reload this. This is running. I'm pretty darn sure this is running, otherwise it wouldn't be pink. This right here says no problems.
Okay.
We're seeing nothing in the debug console. And then Donnie says, do we have to add a breakpoint for anything to actually show up here?
Not really. We first need to verify with the Xdebug log that the connection actually happened.
Okay.
But I don't see anything. So
let's if we just load this, we got these 3 requests.
So the port didn't change.
Oh, it's all 9,000 still. Good catch.
Yeah, that probably means we changed, maybe mistyped it or something.
Maybe, yeah. All right, so this is PHP.ini Xdebug remote _port.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Maybe it is set somewhere else. Can you search for it?
Would I grep in there, or can I search for it in the PHP-i?
Well, yeah, or do that. That works too.
Oh, okay. I'll do actually port.
So it works there. It's changed there. I've seen it
already. Oh yeah, right there. Okay, so let's see. Let's do another restart, but it's possible that this is one of these things where our command line and PHP-FPM. Do you have to restart PHP-FPM separately? Yeah, I think so. No.
No, I don't think so. Well, so why didn't it pick it up?
Can we get it out of PHP info?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. I want to see if PHP info is not showing it picked up, because I want to make sure it's not my connection that's the problem here. Yep, see, it's picked up locally, but
Okay, so it's likely using a different PHP.ini file.
Let me just try this real quick. This is a little bit of a nuclear option where it restarts all of the services that Valet has, and every once in a while that helps you.
Okay. Hey, I will answer questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
John Sugar's asking, is VSCode configured to look at 9003? Yes, we changed that.
Spabby, we had restarted PHP, but we did not restart the entire Valet. So we're going to restart the entire Valet, which also then restarts. Oh, there we go. I don't know why it actually threw that exception, but it's connected. So,
to be honest, where is the stack? Oh, so on the right hand side you have the call stack. Can you make that a bit bigger?
Yeah,
a bit wider.
Trying to get both. Yeah.
And then I've never seen this. And then at the top right you have your variables. So you get your exception, then you get your local argument. I would close the watch screen because I don't really use it very often.
Got it. Okay.
And you have a bit more space.
So it's call stack and variables are the ones we're going to want to be thinking about right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just click on one to go back.
To go back down the stack, yeah.
Yeah, you go back down the stack.
Yeah.
If you want to go.
So
I don't know why VS Code by default pauses on exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
That is a choice that VS Code makes.
Well, right here we've got a thing that says breakpoints everything, so we could choose to contextualize that.
Yep. Yes. So if you turn off everything, then it shouldn't stop at exceptions.
Yeah. Oh, so that's exceptions even if they're caught. That's why I did that. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Even if they're caught, yes.
Okay. So
I also don't know whether VS Code allows multiple debugging sessions at the same time. But if the current one is going, you probably want to stop it. This square in the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then try again.
Try again. Okay. So do you need to do that between every request then?
If the request runs all the way through the end, you don't have to do it. But we didn't.
As soon as it catches something, you got to stop and restart.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So now, if you request your browser again.
Yep. You get nothing.
You get nothing because there's nothing happening. But to make sure that we can still verify it in the log whether it actually did it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it did, looking at the timestamp. Because you can see it. It connects with the init packet. Then it does a list of all the breakpoints that are set, which is none if it just starts.
Yeah.
And then it runs run. And because there's no breakpoints are set, it runs all the way through the end without actually showing you that anything happened.
Got it.
So,
okay, so because we're short on time, first of all, thank you, because it works on my machine now. And that's a different setup than I've heard recommended from a lot of people. Obviously, we've had people in the chat talk about getting it connected with PHP Storm. We've had people talk about getting it connected with Docker. And then we've also said there's apparently different ways to connect. And I would say that I will always lean towards the way that the person who built the thing recommends that I connect, as long as it doesn't make my workflow miserable. And installing a Chrome plugin doesn't make my workflow miserable at all. So that's great. And I love the fact that we have this. Thanks for following Blue at a Hat Fish. So I would say, is there any one last thing before we go for today? Obviously, there's a lot more to do in the future, where we should give an example maybe of a way that Xdebug would be really helpful.
So what you have here is now a root with a very callback function. If you set a breakpoint on this line 17, I think you can just click in front of 17. I don't know how VS Code does that.
Yep. Yeah, you just get a little thing right there. All right.
Okay. Not sure what the difference is between the circle and the red circle, but
I think it's red if I'm hovering, and then it's a normal circle.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a circle if I've clicked it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Now re-request it, and it should stop in this location where you wanted it to stop.
Yeah. Let me get rid of that. This right here. Perfect. So it's in the middle of rendering the view. We can see what all of our super globals are, including all the env. We've got access to, I don't know if we have anything else that's of interest.
No, but what you could do is step into view by clicking the step into button.
Is that one of these?
So you have, I think it's that one, yeah. And then you get to step by step to see exactly what goes on.
So what does step into mean? Just lower down the call stack?
Step into is go to the next executable statement.
Got it. Okay. So
step over is go to the next line in the same scope.
Okay.
And step out means finish running this function.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's very helpful. So
and
as we're
play is run.
Just basically keep going until you hit the next breakpoint until you're done. Or
yes,
no, that's okay. Got it. Okay. So step into, we're going down the stack, and if you've ever seen the Laravel stack trace before, we're basically working our way down what it looks like for Laravel to resolve something out of the container here. So most of the time when you're doing these types of things, you're going to be doing that if you're trying to learn the framework, but if you're trying to debug your own code, you're more likely to be in a circumstance where you're, calling through your own call stacks and seeing which variables get passed through. So if we could do just a really quick test run of something, I wish I meant to build something ahead of time. Oh, can you go back to the previous step, says CDRUK?
No, there's no step back at the moment.
Okay. So what we would end up doing probably is if we were expecting something to be passed to one of our internal classes and something else gets passed. So let's just really quickly, make a function, do stuff, variable, and we're expecting to have, what do we have? View welcome with the stuff equals variable or something like that. Why are you not letting me type here variable? So if we were having our problem not, return do stuff, my best variable. So if we were in a circumstance where you would, what's that? Go ahead.
It's the bestest variable.
The bestest ever, yeah.
Sorry.
So if we were finding ourselves in this circumstance, we would often, be multiple layers of nesting down. We weren't sure exactly which version of this variable is being passed, and we were trying to figure out why. And so we're putting DDs in here. We say DD variable or whatever, whatever. So at this point, the idea is if I want to know what variable is here, is this my best point, to do it?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Set a breakpoint, just run.
All right. Hit run, right? Yeah.
No.
Well,
screen is what
but we also did need to because we weren't listening because I had hit stop. So,
yeah,
all right.
Sometimes you get timeouts.
Well, that's interesting. Why did that not work? Return do stuff, breakpoint set. Although we're getting a red breakpoint, so there we are. But okay, I don't know what's going on there, but
I think you just clicked it once too often.
That's strange. Why is it not getting caught?
So there are a few occasions where PHP doesn't realize there's code on a specific line, and hence it can't break. So that's why you get the unverified breakpoint warning.
Got it. And that's why I was saying that. So it'd be better for us to do it here because this right here is really just a part of this call.
Yes.
Okay.
Now Xdebug has this fixed. And this is implemented with PHP Storm, but I don't think VSCode has opted into this new feature yet.
Got it.
And it needs to opt in because otherwise it returns stuff that it wouldn't understand.
Yeah, and Spebby's talking about that. He said, remember you can only add a breakpoint where there's executable PHP. So, for example, setting a breakpoint at a brace will never fire. And it sounds like it's also true for these mid settings here.
Yeah, but since Xdebug 2.8, Xdebug will actually, if it can't see a breakpoint on a line, it will go either further down or further up, the closest to where it could set a breakpoint, and it will adjust the line number of the breakpoint that you actually have set.
Got it. And
but VS Code doesn't implement it, so.
Got it. Well, he is saying something here about how to be able to expand and browse variables with deep dependencies. That's just about how deeply nested the dependencies are. Is that right?
So, actually, what Xdebug allows you to do is step as deep as you want without making any of these settings, but not all IDEs implement this functionality. Okay,
got it.
But yeah, sometimes if this is a problem, then what Uziel says that is correct. You need to make those extra settings in launch.json, I think.
All right, so I'm going to do one last thing before we go, which is if we could have 2 breakpoints here, one before I modify variable and one after I modify variable, so we can just take a look at the difference. So I have to refresh. And then,
but you need to make sure you set a breakpoint on a line that has code on it.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. How is the best way for me to do this? I want it both before and after, but there's no executable code before and after. So do I do a breakpoint on itself? That'll get me what it's. So will that give me the output as well as the input? Go ahead, sorry.
No, what it does now, it should stop just before the function is run.
Just before, okay.
Step over. It should stop on the next line, and then you should see it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so this is a perfect test. So if we do this right here, we're seeing it's my best variable, and then if I hit step over, it should now say my bestest variable. Great. So if you're in a circumstance where you need to understand, well, why did this thing get modified, you can break on the modification and see the before and after.
Yes.
Very cool.
What you can also do is change the contents of my bestest variable.
What?
But how annoying.
Is it before we step over? Oh, okay, got it.
VS Code hasn't implemented it, it seems.
Yeah. JT says, I think of it as breakpoint stop at the beginning of the line. That's very helpful.
Yes, that's
all right.
Correct.
So VS Code, we've got it working, but as is true with most PHP related things, PHP Storm's going to give it to you a little bit better.
Yes.
From my experience, is Sublime Text? Do you think Sublime Text support is actually viable right now?
I can't tell.
Okay. I did see a offer from friend of the show, Spabby, who said that one thing he might be willing to do, if I think I read this right, where he said people could join a stream with him and say, here's your setup, and he would help you get set up. Did I read that right, that he said that? I'm trying to go back to look.
I think he
said that.
Repeating it, that's much easier.
Yeah. You get what you pay for, he says.
Okay,
Yeah. No, he's joking about PHP Storm. So am I right about that? Yes. Okay, cool. So here we go. Are you Spabby on Twitch? I think you are.
Yes.
TV Spab. Okay, there you go. So
go
ahead.
What Robin says also makes good sense. You can do variable equals blah 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 in the debugging.
Oh, cool. Let's check that out. Variable equals blah blah blah. Why not? Hey, so it does work. So we can modify it. So if we were to do that, would we end up with that variable like actually output to the screen as blah blah blah?
Yep.
What? Okay, hold on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So this doesn't make a lot of sense for static variables, but if you during your debugging you found that one of your condition is wrong because the variable is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can change it and then continue stepping as if it was the right thing and then later fix your code.
That's freaking fantastic. So we'll hit this and then we'll just say keep playing. Oops, sorry. If we keep playing, we just get undefined variable. Wait, why is that possible? Oh, because I named it something other than variable. That's why.
Called it welcome.
Yeah, called stuff. Okay, so let's refresh and then load the page. And then, so this right here just plays, right? So I want to do variable. Oh, hold on. I have to step over because it's about to get modified. So variable equals blah, blah, blah. And then I hit enter. It's modified. And now I just hit the continue.
Yep.
Okay. And then if we load the page over here. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That was the coolest thing ever. Holy crap. Thank you for all the work. He sees your message. So he says, thank you for all your work for the PHP community Xdebug. Thank you. This is so cool. All right, so because we're way over time, first of all, so dear friend Spabby is available for you. So what's your Twitter handle, by the way? I never know where you're Spabby and where you're other things. I don't know. I don't think you're Spabby.
No, it's
here.
not Spabby there.
Do you know what his handle is?
Yeah, it's G. I don't know. I need to check.
He'll tell us on the stream. GH. There you go. It's
I
never actually your full name. That's why I don't even call him Gary anymore. I'm like, you're just Spabby. So Gary Spabby has volunteered that if you have a particular setup in Xdebug that you're having trouble with, hit him up on Twitter and he will allow you to join the stream and he'll walk you through the exact same thing that Derick just did with me here. Gary will do with you there. Gary is a brilliant, beautiful, wonderful human being whom I love dearly, and he'll do that for you. I'm sure that Derick's also available, although he's probably got other things. Derick, what's your Twitter handle so people can follow you if they want?
I'm Derick R.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so Derick, I really appreciate all the work you did here. What is, other than using Xdebug, so let's say if Xdebug worked here, everybody use it and love it. Preferably use it the way that Derick recommended that you use it, because obviously it's a little bit of a different beast than what is often being recommended. So that's one thing. But another thing after that, if you don't have it functioning as a result of this live stream, first thing to do is go to Spabby/GH/Gary. Yeah, Spabby's Gary. Sorry, I've been calling him Spabby all the time, and I didn't realize everybody doesn't know that's Gary Hawken. So that's the next thing. But other than that, what do you want from people? What is the best next step for them to do?
So we've only looked at step debugging now, which is only one of the things that Xdebug does. There's also things like there's a profiler built-in. Or if you run unit tests with PHP units, then it does code coverage for you. If you're new to a code base, there's a function called tracing, which will create a log of every function call and potentially every variable that is being set as well. So that's quite a lot of things in there beyond the step debugging.
Would you join me for another stream to walk through some of those things?
More than happy to.
Okay, so if you have trouble getting it set up, hit up Gary Hawken, which is GEEH on Twitter, or Spabby on Twitch. And if you need other things or have suggestions for the documentation or whatever else, hit Derick up at DERICKR on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about how to use Xdebug in more new and wonderful ways, stay tuned, and it will go out on both on our Twitters when we schedule the next one.
I think at some point we will have to do one where we run PHP and Docker.
Okay.
And whether that's us or Gary and me
or Gary,
somebody.
Yeah. Somebody needs to do it. Yeah, and like I said, Titan already has a few articles out. So I'll probably do a really rudimentary collection of all the articles that are out there before it gets all in the docs, so that we can kind of have some of these things gathered together before 8 and the new documentation is released. And obviously Gary's a huge resource and Derick is. And between all of us, my goal is not that anybody feels pressure to use Xdebug, because you all know how I feel about anything that's gatekeeping-y. But my goal is that everybody who wants to use it has the ability to use it, because my goal is that everybody has access to the tools they want access to. So Derick, I really, really appreciate you reaching out so quickly, for making the time for this, to dealing with all of my video issues. And thank you for making Xdebug. It's obviously a very valuable tool.
All right. Thank you, and you're welcome.
And thank you, everybody else, for hanging out. This will go online as a Twitch replay immediately, and it will be on live as a YouTube replay in a couple days, maybe even later today, depending on how fast I move. So, all right, thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next time.